North Korea is full of secrets. Some are better kept than others. In the case of Kim Jong-un's wife, there may be dark facts about her past and how she got to where she is that the Democratic People's Republic of Korea does not want you to know about. The truth is, Ri Sol-ju is shrouded in mystery. Who is she, really? Why does she disappear from the public's view from time to time? And what other insane facts have been uncovered about the Supreme Leader's wife? Ri Sol-ju was first seen with Kim Jong-un and identified as his wife during the opening of an amusement park in North Korea. This was an underwhelming way to be introduced as the First Lady of the most oppressive dictator on the planet. Once the North Korean state media confirmed that the woman with the Supreme Leader was in fact his wife, people frantically scrambled to figure out who she was and where she came from. Researchers hypothesized that Kim and Ri had likely been married since 2008. But due to heavy censorship in North Korea, it seemed as though Ri Sol-ju appeared out of thin air. But since 2012, stories have been leaked about her past. She also has enjoyed some insane perks as the wife of the dictator of North Korea and has even done some pretty crazy things as a result of the power. However, it's important to remember that Ri Sol-ju's life is not her own, and she has even been forced into some deranged situations. We're going to start at the beginning. In terms of Ri Sol-ju's life, it's unclear exactly when that is. No one but the heads of the North Korean government and Ri's family knows her real date of birth, but it's reported to be sometime between 1985 and 1989, putting her somewhere in her mid to late 30s. Nevertheless, it's not entirely clear when or how she first met Kim Jong-un. There's a mystery surrounding their first meeting, and it might well have been against her will. From what we've been able to uncover, Ri Sol-ju came from a relatively well-off family in North Korea. Her mother was supposedly a doctor and her father a professor. This meant she had certain opportunities most people in North Korea didn't. Even still, she and her family were powerless against what was to come. Before we get to the crazy stuff Ri Sol-ju had to go through as Kim Jong-un's wife, we are going to explore what she did before meeting with her future husband. It's surprising how little is known about Ri Sol-ju's upbringing or what she did before 2012 when she was thrust into the spotlight, but when word got out that Kim Jong-un had a new wife, some people immediately recognized who she was. After the reveal, South Korean intelligence got to work and uncovered some interesting things about the Supreme Leader's new wife. The information uncovered about the mysterious bride indicated that before becoming the wife of Kim Jong-un, Ri Sol-ju was supposedly quite talented. She not only was a musician, but also engaged in other physical activities that might have drawn the Supreme Leader's attention to her. For example, South Korean intelligence was able to track her back to China, where she studied music with a focus on singing. This opportunity would not be granted to just any North Korean citizen, so it's clear that from the beginning of her life, Ri was more privileged than many in her country. Along with singing solo, Ri also performed in the North Korean orchestra, which exemplifies her musical ability. There's no doubt that Ri was musically talented, but she was also engaged in another performing art. In 2005, she visited South Korea as a member of the North Korean cheerleading squad. These facts are surprising because we know very little about the lives of people from North Korea due to the intense censorship the government maintains over everything that happens in their country and with their people. What little knowledge we possess is either fed to the international press by the state media or from defectors of North Korea, as we will see later. There are very few outsiders who are allowed into North Korea, and even fewer that have ever actually met Ri Sol-ju. But one former NBA star has actually provided more information about Kim Jong-un's wife than many other sources due to the fact that he is quite friendly with the Supreme Leader. What makes learning the truth about who Ri Sol-ju was so difficult is that North Korean officials are actively trying to erase her past. Think of how crazy that is. Ri was probably just a normal person living the life of a musician/cheerleader, then her entire history was erased in a matter of days. The reason this happened was probably so the state could mold her to be whoever they wanted or needed at the time, which is pretty messed up. But this isn't really a surprising move for the dictatorship that loves to control and censor every aspect of their citizens' lives. The North Korean government has even gone so far as confiscating bootleg CDs of Ri Sol-ju's performances whenever they come across one. It's scary to think about what happens to the people who were in possession of those bootlegs at the time. The fact that North Korean leaders want to destroy the CDs and all other aspects of Ri Sol-ju's past so badly likely means anyone caught with one of those bootleg CDs probably doesn't make it out of the confrontation unharmed. It's not out of the realm of possibility that anyone in North Korea found with a bootleg copy of Ri's performances is either immediately thrown in jail or killed. Interestingly, Ri was not only a talented entertainer, but she also was reportedly working toward a PhD in one of the sciences before her true identity was wiped from all records and she became Kim Jong-un's wife. It seems as if she had a bright future ahead of her, even under the oppressive regime in North Korea. However, her life was about to change forever. You would think that something as important as Kim Jong-un getting married would be televised and talked about across media outlets in North Korea. Surprisingly, this was not the case, and the reason why is almost unbelievable. Not only was the wedding kept out of the media, but the exact date that Kim Jong-un and Ri Sol-ju were married is unknown. In fact, other than official statements by the government, there's no record that the wedding actually ever happened. It seems like it'd be way too much trouble to create a false marriage to give Kim Jong-un a fake wife, but you can never be too sure when it comes to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. 2009 is the best guess researchers have as to when the wedding officially took place. However, other conflicting stories say that Kim Jong-un didn't even meet Ri until 2010 at one of the concerts she was singing in. Either way, the name Ri Sol-ju did not exist until 2012, when she appeared with the Supreme Leader to open an amusement park and was identified as the wife of Kim Jong-un. Many claim it's not super surprising that there was secrecy around the wedding. This is because Kim Jong-il, the father of Kim Jong-un, did not publicize any of his weddings, even though he had multiple. Not only did Kim Jong-il not allow his weddings to be put in the spotlight, but he never even acknowledged any of his wives in public at all. It was like they existed but were not important enough to attend events or travel with the dictator. This is a pretty messed up way of treating your significant other, and Kim Jong-un is only slightly better than his father in that respect. Ri Sol-ju has definitely been seen in public more than any of Kim Jong-il's wives, but she does tend to disappear from time to time. There's something even crazier about the marriage between Kim Jong-un and Ri Sol-ju. There is a decent chance that she had no say in the marriage at all. It was reported that as Kim Jong-il got sicker and sicker, he began to panic that his son had not yet married or fathered any children. It would be a disaster if his death meant the end of the bloodline. Therefore, there was only one thing to do. Some believe that Kim Jong-il arranged the marriage after suffering a stroke in 2008. For whatever reason, the former Supreme Leader felt his son was not to be trusted with his own future. To be fair, Kim Jong-un hadn't had to make many decisions for himself in his life. So why would who he married be any different? The way this series of events may have played out is that with his failing health, Kim Jong-il frantically began looking for a suitable wife for his son. He found that companion through one of his military advisors, who was the uncle of Ri Sol-ju. This is unconfirmed, but it might have been the path that led to the selection of Kim Jong-un's wife. It would also explain the quick turnaround time between Kim Jong-un having no romantic partners in 2009 to being married in 2012 without anyone knowing. And this also brings up one of the wildest facts about Ri Sol-ju's life. Even though she may have had a bright future ahead of her as an entertainer or a scientist, that was all taken away in the blink of an eye by her future father-in-law. Once Kim Jong-il had his sights set on getting his son married, whoever he chose would have no choice but to say yes. There are definitely upsides to being the dictator's wife, especially when he's an absolute ruler over an entire country. But there are also several downsides. The little we know about Ri Sol-ju is just the tip of the iceberg. You have to remember that before marrying the Supreme Leader, she had a whole life with family and friends. The sad part is she'll likely never see any of them ever again. Being the wife of a dictator means that Ri must be protected at all times and always monitored to make sure she doesn't do anything to hurt her husband or the country as a whole. This means that Ri has zero privacy and isn't allowed to talk with family or friends without the supervision of someone from the state. We doubt she's allowed to talk with anyone from her school, music, or cheerleading days, as the North Korean government has tried extremely hard to hide everything from Ri's past. For what it's worth, Ri Sol-ju has made strides in what the wife of the Supreme Leader of North Korea can do. Unlike all the wives of Kim Jong-il, Ri has traveled with her husband to different countries for certain events. She's even attended some very unexpected weapons tests. In April of 2018, Ri Sol-ju became the first wife of a North Korean leader to attend a summit. Kim Jong-un and his wife went to South Korea, where they met with the president and first lady. This was a huge step forward for the wife of a supreme leader. But what made this trip so special was that it was not with a North Korean ally. Ri Sol-ju had been to China before with her husband. However, South Korea was a country where tensions tend to be high. This inter-Korean summit was a way to show peoples of each nation in the world that South and North Korea were working on a diplomatic way to get along. Ri also did something else surprising at the summit, something no one saw coming. Ri Sol-ju and Kim Jong-suk, the wife of the president of South Korea, apparently became friends. This could have just been for show, but multiple times during the visit, the two women were seen talking about various topics and laughing with one another. It was reported that they bonded over their love of music, especially singing. Kim Jong-suk sang in the Seoul Metropolitan Chorus, while Ri, as far as we can tell, sang in the Unhasu Orchestra in her pre-marriage days. It is possible that the first ladies at the summit made more progress than their husbands, and Ri Sol-ju played a prominent role in this connection during the meeting. This is a common theme with Ri, which makes it surprising when she disappears from the public view from time to time. In all of her international appearances, people seem to like her. But there's one thing about Ri Sol-ju that has surprised, shocked, and even led to confrontation amongst the international community. Ri Sol-ju has been praised and condemned for her sense of fashion, and there is a good reason for this. Ri became somewhat of a fashion icon in China. During a 2-day visit to Beijing, Ri was reported to have worn 3 different outfits, each of which became popular amongst the Chinese fashion community. She seems to favor pastel-colored dresses reminiscent of Easter eggs, which seems to speak to some Chinese women. In fact, social media in China could not get enough of the North Korean dictator's wife while she was visiting. Ri has also been seen carrying expensive bags from fashion icons like Chanel and Dior. Between the dresses, jackets, and the bags in her wardrobe, it's clear Ri Sol-ju has some expensive tastes. And this is where she runs into some problems from the international community. Ri's outfits and accessories cost thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. And this is just what we have seen from the approved media photos. There's no telling how much her entire wardrobe could cost. And in a country where poverty runs rampant among most of its citizens, having the dictator's wife owning thousands or even millions of dollars worth of clothing and accessories is not received well by human rights organizations. Now, Ri Sol-ju is not the only first lady to own expensive outfits while her people starve. Actually, any first lady in any country probably has outfits worth more than many people make in a month or a year. And this is just the world we live in. But in North Korea's case, the disparity between the people in power and the rest of the population is insane. Due to the way the country is run, somewhere around 60% of the North Korean population is reported to live in poverty. That means over half of the country is struggling just to survive, while the elites are living lives of luxury and comfort. It's almost a slap in the face to the country's citizens when the wife of their ruler is seen wearing expensive clothing. To put this into perspective, most North Korean workers make somewhere between $2 and $3 per month. That means that just one of the purses or dresses that Ri has been seen wearing costs more than what these people make in decades. That is pretty messed up when you think about it. However, we don't know for sure what the exact purchasing habits of the Supreme Leader's wife are, since the only information we have is what the state-controlled media shows us. Maybe Ri is trying to update the look of North Korea by wearing things from Western countries and promoting a more modern wardrobe for women. It seems unlikely that the men who make up the leadership of North Korea would concern themselves over what the wife of their leader wears, but maybe they do. Or perhaps the most powerful woman in North Korea, Kim Yo-jong, the sister of Kim Jong-un, is working in collaboration with Ri to change the way women are viewed in the country. We probably won't ever find out, but it is surprising that Kim Jong-un's wife is even allowed to wear clothing and apparel created by companies that are from the part of the world that North Korea despises. Even though Ri might be seen as progressive by women in some countries, she still must follow some very strict rules, some of which you will not believe. Ri Sol-ju has traveled around North Korea and to other countries with her husband many times, but she is not allowed to go anywhere on her own. Maybe it's because North Korea thinks she's a flight risk, or perhaps they don't trust her, but it's more likely because they just want to control every part of her life. Until Ri Sol-ju, the wives of the supreme leaders of North Korea weren't allowed to leave the country even with their husbands. So at least Ri getting to visit China and South Korea is positive. But the restrictions Ri has to follow are extreme at the best of times and oppressive in most circumstances. Interestingly, Ri left the country many times before being married, when she traveled as an entertainer. But now that she's Kim Jong-un's wife, traveling outside of North Korea by herself is a thing of the past. However, one of the most shocking places that Ri Sol-ju has been spotted is at a missile launch. Why does she need to be at missile launches? No one knows. Maybe it has to do with Kim Jong-un wanting his faithful wife by his side as he threatens world peace, but it probably has more to do with public image than anything else. Then again, maybe Ri enjoys going to the missile launches. She always seems to have one of her most stylish pastel dresses on for the occasion. Since she's not allowed to do interviews or speak for herself, we may never know why she's actually there. But a missile launch seems to be an odd place for the First Lady to appear, even in North Korea. And this isn't the only military activity that Ri's been involved with. She was actually responsible for something that seems to be out of line with how the wives of the Kim dynasty are normally treated. It's almost unbelievable. It's been reported that Ri Sol-ju actually fired one of the top generals in the North Korean military. There's a decent chance this was done as a way to advance a particular policy change or a form of propaganda to show the supreme leader's wife as being powerful, but it's still the first time such an event has occurred. Although, when you think about it, it's kind of a badass move for Ri to fire a hardened general. Seems that for many years, Ri could be found by her husband's side at any number of different events and occasions. However, there are times when the supreme leader's wife went missing. What could have caused her sudden disappearance? You wouldn't know it, but it was actually for a joyous reason. At least that's what it seemed like at first. Although the international community didn't learn of who Ri Sol-ju was until 2012, there were North Koreans who were aware their future leader had taken a wife years before that. Some recounted that in 2010, Ri Sol-ju abruptly disappeared. It got to the point where people were worried about her well-being. Rumors started to circulate that she'd become very sick. However, that was far from the truth. What actually happened during her disappearance was that she was pregnant. The North Korean government did not want Ri to appear in any form of media until after she had given birth. No one quite knows why they wanted to keep Ri and her pregnancy a secret from the world, but the second time around in 2012, many speculated based on pictures that she was pregnant again. The craziest part was that the world wouldn't find out if the rumors were true until a former NBA player went to North Korea and accidentally leaked the secret. In 2013, Dennis Rodman visited Kim Jong-un in North Korea. This would be the first of several visits to the country where he became friends with the supreme leader. When Rodman first met Kim Jong-un, he said he got to spend time with his family. This would be one of the only times when someone from the United States or Western world would interact with Ri Sol-ju. When Rodman returned from his visit to North Korea, he had only nice things to say about Kim Jong-un and his wife. Rodman told the press that Ri was kind and that Kim Jong-un was a good dad with a beautiful family. Their baby girl is named Kim Ju-ae and was apparently the only child present when Rodman visited North Korea. This is interesting because although Rodman has been back, there has been no mention of Kim Jong-un and Ri's other kids. They're reported to have 3 altogether, but this cannot be confirmed as there's no official pictures or documents of the children. In 2017, Ri disappeared again, and it's assumed she had another child. But this is where things get really crazy. There might be a reason that Ri Sol-ju and the rest of the family of the supreme leader have not been in the press. In order to continue the Kim dynasty, Ri and her husband need to have a boy. Some reports claim that this has already happened, but others are skeptical. Media outlets in South Korea have speculated that Ri Sol-ju's first 2 children were girls. This would be a problem for the Kim dynasty, as a male is needed to continue the family tradition of ruling North Korea. Some think this prompted North Korean officials to force Ri and her husband to keep trying until they had a baby boy. One defector even told South Korean newscasters that Ri was being pressured from all sides to give birth to a son because the regime is not so sturdy. This is a good time to point out the irony of male dictators or kings who get upset at their wives for not having a male baby. Since the only way a baby can be born is if the father's Y chromosome is in the sperm that impregnates the female. The only person to blame for not having a boy is the father. This means that it's never the woman's fault that a baby is not male. Granted, it is random chance whether the sperm will contain an X or a Y chromosome, but the fact remains the only person that's capable of contributing to the sex of the chromosome that will result in a male offspring is the father. So really, Kim Jong-un should be the only person under pressure to produce male offspring, and Ri Sol-ju should just be left alone. Then again, Kim doesn't seem like he takes constructive criticism very well. In April of 2018, Ri received a new title. Instead of being Comrade Ri Sol-ju, she was elevated to the status of Respected First Lady Ri Sol-ju. This was the first time the wife of a North Korean ruler has held that title since 1974. This might have been done to show that North Korea was a progressive country, but since 2018, very little has been seen of Ri Sol-ju. In fact, the last time she was seen was on January 25, 2020, at the Pyongyang Samjeon Theater for a Lunar New Year's Day performance. This means she has not made an appearance in public in almost 2 years. Like everything else about Ri Sol-ju, we have very little information to go on to explain her most recent disappearance. But you can't help but feel that the leaders of the North Korean government are in some way to blame. Now watch, what is it really like living in North Korea? Or check out North Korea versus United States 2021 Military Army Comparison.